Do you know that feeling when the whole world freezes? When every second seems to last an eternity, and the air is so heavy you can barely breathe? I lived through that, and it wasn't a dream. It was on a Tuesday afternoon, February 16th, 2018, at 4:47 p.m. I was standing, leaning against a dirty concrete wall inside the Kichon military complex in North Korea. There was a rifle pointed right here, at my chest, and there, about 20 meters away, my son was staring at me, our eyes locked. My name is Minji Park, and I know it sounds crazy, but I should have died that day. That woman standing there waiting for the shots, she doesn't exist anymore. She's trapped in that impossible moment. But I'm here, breathing, telling you this story. And the only explanation I have is that someone turned off the lights right when the soldier's finger was about to pull the trigger. It wasn't a normal blackout. It was something I still can't explain. But let me go back a bit. Let me tell you how I ended up there. Because nobody ends up in front of a firing squad out of nowhere, right? In my country, believing in God isn't a right. It's a death sentence. It was a Saturday, 5:30 in the morning. It was still dark outside. My son, Sunjo, was sleeping on his thin mattress on the other side of our tiny 9-square-meter room, there in Block 17, Moranbong District in Pyongyang. I had spent the whole night awake again, hidden under the covers with a weak flashlight, trying to memorize some verses from the 3 crumpled pages of the Bible that I managed to hide in the insole of my left shoe. Psalm 91. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I repeated those words in my head as if they were air for my lungs, and in a way they were, in a place where everything is watched, controlled, suffocated. Those words were the only thing that reminded me that there was something bigger than fear. But that morning, fear came knocking at my door. I heard the boots before the screams, banging on the building's stairs, rising quickly, like a wave of iron coming to swallow me. My heart stopped instantly. I simply knew what it meant. They had come to get me. I jumped out of bed, my hands trembling uncontrollably. I grabbed the pages of the Bible and stuffed them all into my mouth, trying to swallow. But there wasn't time. The metal door burst open. The frame shattered. The lock flew off. And then 4 men in olive green uniforms entered, flashlights in hand, faces completely expressionless. Minji Park, you are under arrest for counter-revolutionary activities against the state. They didn't even let me answer. One of them grabbed my arm with such brutal force that I felt as if he were tearing my shoulder off. I fell to the ground. The pages flew out of my mouth. The soldier caught them, looked at them, and smiled. But it wasn't a human smile. It was the smile of someone who had just confirmed a death sentence. That's when Sunjo woke up screaming, "Mommy! Mommy, no!" He came running towards me. My 8-year-old boy, his hair messy, his eyes swollen with sleep, and now wide with terror. He tried to hug me, but one of the soldiers pushed him away. My son hit the wall. I heard the sound of his little head hitting the concrete. "Don't touch him!" I yelled in a voice that didn't even sound like mine. "He's just a child." But it was no use. My words didn't matter. Nothing mattered. They dragged me down the hallway, up the stairs, while Sunjo cried behind me, a cry that I still hear in my dreams to this day. "Mommy, please, Mommy." I wanted to turn around. I wanted to see him one last time, but one of the soldiers held my head tightly, forcing me to look straight ahead. They dragged me out of the building. It was still early morning, freezing cold, 8 degrees below zero. My breath came out in clouds of steam. My bare feet strode on the icy asphalt. Each step was agony. They threw me into a windowless military truck. The door slammed shut, and darkness swallowed me completely. I spent 2 hours in that truck. 2 hours without knowing where they were taking me. All I could hear was the roar of the engine and the screeching of the tires on the potholed asphalt. I tried to pray, but the words wouldn't come. Only tears, and my son's face etched into my mind like a wound that won't heal. When the truck finally stopped, they dragged me out any which way. We were in front of a 3-story gray building. No sign, no identification whatsoever, no visible windows. Just concrete, barbed wire, and a silence that chilled the soul. They took me to the basement, a cold, damp room, with a metal chair right in the middle and a lamp hanging from the ceiling that kept flickering as if it were about to go out at any moment. They threw me into the chair. They tied my wrists with wire. The metal was digging into my skin. I felt the blood starting to pool in my hands. And that's when they came in. 2 interrogators. One older, with scars on his face and a lit cigarette in his hand. The other, younger, wearing sunglasses. Sunglasses in the underground, can you believe it? They stopped right in front of me. The older one spoke first. "Do you know why you're here?" It wasn't a question. No, it was a statement. "I know," I replied. My voice barely came out. "Where did you get this?" He pulled the crumpled pages from his pocket and shoved them close to my face. "Someone gave it to me." "Who?" "I don't know. It was years ago, at the market." I lied. I knew exactly who had given it to me. An older sister from the clandestine group, but I would never betray her. Never. The man took a long drag on his cigarette. The smoke rose slowly toward the lamp. And then, without warning, he stubbed out the cigarette on my forearm. The pain was immediate, sharp, as if my skin were melting. I screamed. My body arched against the restraints, but the wire only penetrated deeper. "Let's make things easy, Minji. Either you give us the names, or your son will learn what real pain is." My heart stopped. "What?" My voice faltered. "He has nothing to do with this. He's just a child. He's the son of a traitor. That's enough." Tears began to fall uncontrollably. Not because of the physical pain, no, but because I knew he was serious. In my country, children pay for the mistakes of their parents. 3 entire generations can be wiped out by the guilt of a single person. "Please," I begged, "leave him alone. I take all the blame. You can do whatever you want to me, but not to him. Please." The man leaned toward me. His breath smelled of stale tobacco, and something even worse. "Then give us your names." I closed my eyes. I saw the faces of the brothers and sisters in the clandestine group, the woman who gave me the pages, the man who coordinated the studies in the hidden basement, the families with children whispering hymns softly. If I reported them, they would all end up there, or worse. "I can't," I whispered. The blow came before I could prepare myself, a punch to my face. I felt something snap against my nose. Hot blood began to trickle down my chin, down my lips. The metallic taste filled my entire mouth. "You can't?" The man's voice sounded almost amused. "Great, we have time. And methods." For the next 6 hours, I was interrogated nonstop. Questions, beatings, burns, threats that became increasingly specific, increasingly cruel. They showed me photos of detention centers. They described in detail what they did to the children inside. They told me that Sunjo was already on his way, but something inside me broke in a different way. It wasn't weakness. No, it was clarity. I understood that if I spoke, I wouldn't save my son. I would only condemn more children, more families, more brothers and sisters. So I remained silent, and I prayed without words. On the 3rd day, they took me to the Keichun military complex. It was a 2-hour journey in another truck. This time I wasn't alone. There were 3 other prisoners with me. An older man who was trembling uncontrollably, a young girl with a vacant stare, and a teenager who was praying softly until one of the guards hit him to shut him up. When we arrived, they forced us down into a huge courtyard surrounded by concrete buildings and watchtowers. It was bitterly cold. The wind howled, kicking up dust and carrying the smell of burnt fuel. And then I saw something that froze me more than the wind. In the center of the courtyard was a high concrete wall covered in dark stains, stains that needed no explanation. And in front of that wall, I saw my son. Sunjo was there with other children, all under 12 years old, all in dirty school uniforms. Everyone had been brought here, faces pale with terror, to witness what was about to happen. Our eyes met. His eyes were red, swollen from crying so much. He had a bruise on his cheek. He'd been beaten. My baby, my son. He'd spent 3 days alone, scared, probably without food, and now they were forcing him to watch this. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break the chains on my wrists and take him far away from there, to any place where the sky didn't weigh so heavily. But I couldn't move. They separated us. They led me toward the wall. The other 3 prisoners went in different directions. I heard shots in the distance. 1, 2, 3, sharp, final. And then I knew. There was no one else. Just me. They pushed me against the wall. The concrete was cold against my back. I could feel the roughness, the cracks, and those stains, those dark stains that I now understood perfectly. A soldier stopped in front of me, young, maybe 22 or 23 years old, with a Type 56 rifle slung over his shoulder. He raised the weapon and pointed it. His hands didn't tremble. His eyes showed nothing, neither hatred nor compassion, just emptiness. Behind him I saw Sunjo. 2 soldiers were holding him back so he couldn't look away. My son was crying silently, tears streaming down his cheeks. His lips were moving. He was saying something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read it on his lips. "I love you, Mom." I closed my eyes for a second. Just 1 second. And in that second, I said the shortest and most desperate prayer of my life. Then she leaned toward me. "There's someone who loves you more than you can imagine. Someone who sees your pain, who counts each of your tears, who has plans for you beyond these walls. Who are you talking about?" "His name is Jesus." My heart froze. I looked around in terror. Saying that name was unthinkable. People disappeared for far less than that. "Don't say that," I whispered desperately. "They might be listening to us." "I know, but I needed to tell you, because I see something special in you. A longing, a hunger for something real." She was right. For years I'd felt an emptiness that nothing could fill. Not work, not family, not the regime's promises of a glorious future that never arrived. It was like living in a room without windows, knowing the sun was out there, but never being able to see it. "How do you know about him?" I asked. I didn't dare repeat the name, because I was taught, and before I leave this world, I need to teach someone. That conversation changed everything. In the following weeks, Mrs. Choi told me stories of a man who healed the sick, who loved the rejected, who forgave the guilty, who gave his own life so that others could have true life. She spoke of a God who did not demand forced worship, but offered unconditional love. It was the complete opposite of everything I knew, and every word broke me and healed me at the same time. "There are others," she said one day, "people who believe, who meet in secret. If you want to meet them, I can take you." I should have said no. I should have left. I should have protected my family. But something inside me screamed that it was true, that I had finally found what I was looking for without even knowing it. "Take me with you," I said. 3 days later, on a moonless night, I followed her through dark streets to an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. We descended a broken staircase to a damp basement that smelled of mold and wet grime. There was a wooden door at the back. Mrs. Choi knocked 3 times. Pause. 2 more times. The door opened, and I went in. There were 17 people there. Men, women, young, old, sitting on the floor on old, torn blankets. In the center, a lit candle, and in the hands of an older man, crumpled pages of the Bible. He read in a low voice, so low that we had to lean forward to hear him. But each word was like water in the desert. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I cried that night. I cried like I hadn't cried in years, because finally someone had seen my exhaustion. Finally someone offered me real relief. I started going every week, always cautiously, always afraid, but also with a growing hope that I couldn't ignore. I learned to pray, singing in whispers, memorizing verses, because we weren't allowed to take anything written down to go home. I told Jae-sung. At first he was terrified. He begged me to stop going. But when he saw the change in me, when he realized that bitterness had been replaced by peace, something inside him broke too. "I want to go with you," he said one night, and we went together. For 2 years, this was our life, work, family, and the secret meetings that nourished our souls. I received those 3 pages of the Bible from Mrs. Choi. I hid them. I read them every night. I memorized every verse. Then, in March 2016, everything fell apart. The group was discovered. I don't know how. Maybe someone ratted us out. Maybe we were being followed. Maybe it was just a matter of time. One night, the soldiers arrived. They surrounded the building. They went down to the basement, and they arrested everyone. The screams, the blows, the chaos. Jae-sung and I weren't there that night. Sunjo was sick, and we stayed home. We were saved by sheer luck, or something like that, but the others weren't. Mrs. Choi was taken to a forced labor camp. I never saw her again. The old man who was reading the Bible simply disappeared. Families were separated. Children were sent to state orphanages. It was a silent massacre. Jae-sung and I panicked. We knew it was only a matter of time before they came looking for us, before they interrogated us, before they looked for connections, names, and eventually found us. "We need to disappear," Jae-sung said. "Go to China. Anywhere." But leaving wasn't easy. The borders were heavily guarded. Illegal crossings were punishable by death. And we had a son, a 3-year-old boy who wouldn't understand why we had to flee in the middle of the night. We decided to stay, to be more careful, to not meet with anyone else, to keep our faith silent. in the darkness of our home, without letting anything show. It worked for a while. Until one night in June 2017, Yesung didn't come home from work. I waited an hour, 2, 3. Day broke and the door was still locked. Sunjo kept asking about his father. I had no answer. The next day, I found out. There had been an accident at the construction site. A building had collapsed. 5 workers were trapped under the rubble. Jae-sung was one of them. They never recovered his entire body. Only pieces, fragments of the person I loved. They gave me a small box with his belongings, a broken watch, a photo of us, nothing else. I was left alone with a 4-year-old boy, no husband, no family, because they had all been sent to forced labor camps decades ago for crimes I never understood. Alone in a country where being alone meant being vulnerable. But I had my faith. It was all I had left. I kept working. I kept praying. I kept secretly teaching Sunjo about the God who loved us. I told him bedtime stories about David and Goliath, about Daniel in the lion's den, about Jesus calming the storm, and he listened with big, bright eyes, believing every word as only a child can. For a year and a half I lived like that, walking a tightrope between faith and fear, working, surviving, worshiping in silence, until that early morning in February 2018, when the boots went up the stairs, when the pages of the Bible flew from my mouth, when it all ended, or at least that's when I thought it was all over. All at once, the entire military complex plunged into absolute darkness. It wasn't gradual. There was no fluctuation. It was as if someone had pulled a black curtain over the entire world. The lampposts, the lights on the buildings, even the faint glow of the watchtowers. Everything disappeared in a second. The silence that followed was unnatural. There were no screams, no orders, just a deep, heavy emptiness that seemed to have physical weight. I could feel it pressing against my chest, filling my lungs, enveloping me like an invisible blanket. My eyes desperately searched for some form in the darkness. The silhouette of the soldier in front of me, the wall behind me, the buildings in the distance, but there was nothing. It was like being inside a sealed cave, or like being blind. My breathing quickened. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. The rifle was still pointed at me. I knew. Even without being able to see, I felt it. The cold metal barrel pointed at my chest, the finger on the trigger, death millimeters away, but the shot didn't come. The seconds dragged on like hours. I tried to move, but the chains on my wrists wouldn't let me. I tried to scream my son's name, but my voice caught in my throat. I tried to understand what was happening, but my mind was a tangle of broken thoughts. Was this part of the execution? A new form of psychological torture? Or had something really happened? And then, in the midst of that suffocating darkness, I heard something. Not with my ears, no, with something else, deep inside me. A voice that didn't come from outside. It came from within, clear and powerful, as if someone had lit a light in the center of my chest. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Tears began to stream down my face, because I recognized those words. I had memorized them, whispered them hundreds of times in the darkness of my cell. Isaiah 43. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. My body began to tremble, not from fear, but from something I can't explain. A mixture of relief, astonishment, and the absolute certainty that I wasn't alone, that I had never been alone. And then the lights came back on. It was as sudden as when they switched off, a flash, and suddenly everything was back. The lights of the complex, the spotlights, the cold glow of the concrete buildings. Everything exactly as before, except that something had changed. The soldier in front of me was still in the same position. The rifle was still pointed at me, but his hands were visibly trembling. The weapon moved up and down, from side to side, as if he were holding it with loose strings instead of arms. His face, which seconds before had been impassive, now showed something I didn't expect to see. Terror. His eyes were wide open, his mouth slightly parted, his skin pale, as if he had just seen something his mind refused to process. He was looking at me, but he didn't see me. He saw something else, something I couldn't see, but that he clearly could. The rifle fell from his hands. It hit the ground with a metallic thud that echoed in the silence. The soldier stepped back. 1 step, 2, 3. He tripped over his own feet and fell, sitting on the asphalt. "I can't," he whispered. His voice was almost inaudible. I can't do this. The officer shouted, "Get up! Grab your weapon now!" But the soldier didn't move. He just shook his head repeatedly, as if trapped in a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. "I can't," he repeated. "It's right there." "What is that over there?" The officer approached furiously. "There's nothing here." "Yes, it does." The soldier pointed at me, but his finger was trembling so much that the direction was imprecise. "It's right in front of her. Can't you see it?" The officer slapped him. The sound echoed in the cold air, but the soldier didn't even react. His eyes remained fixed on a point I couldn't identify. And then, from the group of children, I heard a scream. "Mother!" Sunjo had broken through the line. 2 soldiers tried to hold him back, but my son was small, quick, driven by a desperation that gave him superhuman strength. He escaped their grasp and ran towards me. She crossed the entire courtyard. Her little feet tapped on the asphalt. Her messy hair flew in the wind. Her eyes were full of tears, but also of determination. He caught up with me. He threw himself against me with such force that I almost fell. His arms wrapped around my legs, his face buried in my stomach, and he cried. He cried like only a child who thinks he's lost his mother can cry. "Don't go," he sobbed. "Please, Mom, don't go." I wanted to hug him. I wanted to wrap him in my arms and protect him from the whole world. But the damn chains were still there, so I could only lean in just enough to rest my head against his. "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm here, my love. I'm not going anywhere." I didn't know if it was true. I didn't know what was going to happen in the next few minutes, but at that moment, I needed him to believe me. The officer was shouting contradictory orders. The guards were running around, not knowing what to do. The soldier who was supposed to execute me was still on the ground, trembling, muttering nonsense. Everything was chaos. And amidst that chaos, I felt something change in the air. It was hard to explain, like when a storm is about to begin and the wind stops completely, leaving a strange stillness. That's how it was, as if the world were holding its breath. The screams ceased. The movement slowed. Even the wind seemed to calm down. And then the officer made a decision. "Take her back to her cell," he said. His voice was tense. "I need to report this. Something is wrong here." 2 guards approached. One of them released my chains from the wall. The other tried to pull Sunjo away from me. My son clung on with all his might, screaming, kicking, refusing to let go. "No, leave her alone. Sunjo," I said, my voice as firm as I could manage. "Look at me." He lifted his face. His eyes were red. His nose was running. His cheeks were dirty with tears and dust. "I'll be okay," I told him, even though I wasn't sure. "But I need you to be strong. Can you do that for me?" He nodded slowly, even though every fiber of his being resisted. "I love you," I whispered, "more than anything in this world. Never forget that." "I love you too, Mom." The guards finally managed to separate us. They lifted him into the air while he stretched his arms towards me, as if he wanted to grab me, even though I was getting further and further away. They took him back to the line of children. They held him there, and I watched my son disappear among the soldiers' bodies. They dragged me back into the building, through the cold corridors, down the stairs, until we reached a cell I hadn't seen before, smaller, darker, with a metal cot and nothing else. They threw me inside. The door slammed shut with a thunderous crash, and I was left alone in the darkness. But this time the darkness wasn't frightening, because I knew someone had been there, in that courtyard, when the lights went out, when the soldier saw something I couldn't see, when my life should have ended but didn't. Someone intervened, and that someone was still with me. I collapsed onto the bed. My body trembled with exhaustion, with shock, with a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't decipher. I closed my eyes, and finally, the tears I had been holding back escaped. I cried for hours. I cried from fear, from relief, for my son, for Mrs. Choi, for Jae Sung, for all the people I lost, and for all the others who continued to suffer in the darkness. But I also cried tears of gratitude, because I was alive, against all odds, against all logic. I was breathing. At some point, exhaustion overcame me. I slept there on that cold cot. My clothes were soiled with dust and dried blood. My body ached. My heart was broken, but still beating. And I dreamed. I dreamed of light, a warm golden light that enveloped me like a hug. And in that light, a voice, the same voice I had heard in the darkness. "Your story doesn't end here. It's only just beginning." The following days were a blur of confusion and silence. I was never questioned again. No one came to explain what had happened. They simply left me in that cell, with a ration of watered-down rice once a day, and a glass of murky water that tasted of rust. There were no windows, no way to know if it was day or night. Time became abstract, measured only by hunger and exhaustion. But I had something they couldn't take from me. I had the verses memorized, the words I had hidden in my heart for years, and in that dark cell, those words became my light. I recited Psalm 23 repeatedly. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Each word was an act of resistance. Each verse a declaration that I wasn't broken, that I still had hope. I prayed for Sunjo. I imagined his face. I wondered where he was, if he was scared, if he remembered the stories I told him, if he knew I was still there, fighting for him. Even from inside, my mind kept replaying the moment in the courtyard, the lights going out, the absolute darkness, the inner voice, the soldier trembling, the rifle falling, the power returning just in time. It was no coincidence. It couldn't have been. I had read enough stories in those crumpled pages of the Bible to recognize a miracle when I saw one. God had shut the mouths of lions for Daniel, stopped the sun for Joshua, parted the sea for Moses, and for me, an insignificant woman in a country where faith was a crime, he turned off the lights of an entire military complex. Why? I didn't know. Maybe I never would. But the fact that I was alive was proof enough that my life had a purpose, that my story hadn't ended against that wall. On the 5th day, the door opened. They weren't the usual guards. He was a different man, older, in the uniform of a high-ranking officer, with insignia I didn't recognize, and a serious expression, but not cruel. He stood in the doorway, staring at me silently for a long time. "Minji Park," he finally said. "Yes," I replied. My voice was hoarse from not using it for so long. "There's something irregular about your case." I didn't answer. I just waited. The incident at the complex caused concern. Several witnesses reported unexplained events. The soldier assigned to carry out the execution has been removed from his post. He is undergoing psychological evaluation. I swallowed hard. I didn't know if that was good or bad. "What did you see?" the officer asked suddenly. "In the courtyard, when the lights went out. What did you see?" "Nothing," I replied honestly. "It was dark. Did you hear anything? Did you feel anything?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to tell the truth, that I had heard a voice, that I had felt a presence, that I had experienced a peace that made no rational sense. But another part knew that this would only make things worse. "All I heard was silence," he finally said. The officer studied me as if trying to determine if I was lying. "The soldier says he saw something standing in front of him, something shiny, with wings." My heart raced. Wings. He had seen an angel. The idea seemed impossible, but at the same time, "I didn't see anything," I repeated. The officer sighed. He took out a cigarette and lit it. The smoke filled the small cell, making me dizzy. Officially, its execution was postponed due to technical circumstances. "What does this mean?" "It means you're alive for now, but your sentence hasn't been overturned. Eventually, you'll have to face the consequences of your crimes against the state. And my son, he's in an educational institution. He's going to be re-educated to serve the state properly." The words hit me like a punch. Educational institution. That meant orphanage. A place where they were going to brainwash him, where they were going to try to erase everything I had taught him. "Can I see him?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "No." The officer turned and left. The door closed again, and I stood there, his cigarette smoke still in the air, feeling my heart shatter. The following months were a test of endurance that I never imagined I could withstand. 90 days in total. 3 months in that cell, without seeing the sun, without speaking to anyone except the guards who brought the food, without knowing anything about the world outside. My body weakened. I lost weight. My hair started falling out in clumps. My skin turned grayish from the lack of light. But my spirit grew stronger, because each day I survived was a new miracle. Each sunrise that arrived, even if I couldn't see it, was proof that God hadn't forgotten me. I recited verses. I sang hymns softly. I prayed without ceasing. And little by little, I felt something change inside me. The fear that had been my constant companion for years began to dissipate, replaced by a confidence that didn't come from me, but from something much greater. And then, on the 90th day, something unexpected happened. The door opened, but this time he wasn't a guard. He was the same officer who had visited me before. "You're going to be released," he said bluntly. I wasn't sure if I'd heard right. "What?" "Your case has been reviewed. For reasons I cannot discuss, it has been decided that your detention is no longer necessary. You will be released under strict supervision. Any violation of the law will result in immediate arrest and execution without trial." My mind struggled to process the information. After all that, it didn't make sense. People like me didn't get out of those places. They didn't survive. And my son, returned to your custody, under the same conditions. Tears started falling before I could stop them. "Sunjo, I was going to see Sunjo again. Thank you," I whispered, although the word seemed insufficient. The officer nodded, but before leaving, he stopped at the door and glanced at me over his shoulder. "I don't know who you are," he said softly, "nor what happened in that courtyard, but there are people here who are afraid of you, afraid of what you represent, including me." And with that, he left. They took me to a room where they gave me clean clothes. Nothing elegant, just simple clothes. But after 90 days in the same dirty clothes, it felt like luxury. They gave me water to wash myself. I looked in the rusty little mirror and barely recognized the woman I saw. Thin, deep, dark circles under my eyes, scars on my arms, but alive. I was alive. When I left the building, the sun blinded me. It was mid-May. Spring had arrived while I was trapped. The air was warm. The flowers were beginning to bloom. The world kept turning while I was trapped in darkness. And there was Sunjo, waiting at the door, thinner, paler, with his head shaved. But he was my son, my reason for living. We ran towards each other. We hugged so tightly it hurt. We cried. We laughed. We trembled. All at the same time. "I thought I had lost you," he whispered in my shoulder. "Never," I replied. "You'll never lose me." It wasn't a promise I could guarantee. In our country, promises were fragile. But at that moment, I believed. Because if God had performed a miracle to keep me alive until then, maybe, just maybe, he had a plan for what was to come. They gave us a document outlining the conditions of our freedom. We had to report weekly. We couldn't leave the city. We couldn't speak to foreigners. We couldn't participate in any religious or counter-revolutionary activities. I signed without reading. Because I knew that what mattered now was much more than any piece of paper. I needed to get my son out of that country, and I had no idea how I was going to do it. If you think miracles are moments frozen in time, without consequences, you're mistaken. Miracles have chain reactions. They expand. They touch lives you never imagined existed. And the miracle that saved my life that day at the Kachon military compound didn't just change me. It also changed the soldier who was going to execute me. I didn't realize it right away. In those first few days after our liberation, I was too busy trying to rebuild what was left of our lives. We found our apartment exactly as we had left it, except that everything had been turned upside down. Clothes scattered on the floor, empty drawers. Even Sunjo's little mattress had been cut open, as if they had been searching for something hidden inside. There was nothing to find. Everything of value that I owned had vanished. I went back to work at the textile factory. Nobody spoke to me. The women who used to sit next to me at lunch now moved away when I approached. The supervisors were watching me all the time. I was marked. Someone who had narrowly escaped execution and somehow survived. That made me dangerous by association. But I needed the money. I needed the food rations. And most importantly, I needed to appear normal while I planned our escape. Every night, while Sunjo slept, I would stay awake staring at the cracked ceiling of our apartment, thinking about how we were going to cross the border into China. I had heard stories, whispered rumors in the markets, families who had tried. Some succeeded, many didn't. The Tumen River, that was the way, frozen in winter, but easier to cross than electric fences and minefields. We needed contacts, money, and above all, time. 3 months have passed. June, July, August. And then, one September night, someone knocked on our door. It was late. It was past 11. Sunjo was sleeping. I was mending a pair of pants with a rusty needle when I heard the soft knocks. 3 beats. Pause. 2 more. My heart stopped. It was the signal. The same one we used in our clandestine meetings years ago. I got up slowly. I walked to the door. I looked through the crack, and I couldn't believe what I saw. It was him, the soldier, the one who had pointed the rifle at me, the one who had seen something I couldn't see, the one who had dropped his weapon, trembling. I opened the door slowly. My body was tense. I was ready to scream if it was a trap. But when I saw his face, I knew it wasn't. He was thin, sunken eyes, worn civilian clothes, and in his eyes there was something I recognized immediately, because I'd seen it in the mirror for months. Despair. "You don't have to let me in," he said softly. "I just needed to see you. I needed to know you were real." "What do you want?" I asked. My voice was harsher than I intended. "Answers." I stared at him for a long time. Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face. This man almost took my life. He pointed a rifle at my chest. He was following orders to execute me. But another part of me saw something different. I saw someone who had been destroyed by what they witnessed, someone whose world crumbled that day, just like mine. I let him in. He sat on the edge of the chair as if afraid of taking up too much space. His hands were trembling. "They haven't stopped shaking since that day," he told me later. "My name is Kang Min-soo," he said. "I was 23 years old when I was assigned to execute you. It was my first time. My superior said it was an honor, that I was serving the state, eliminating the enemies of the people." He stopped. He swallowed hard, but I didn't want to. I tried to convince myself it was my duty, that you were dangerous, that you deserved what was about to happen. I repeated these lies to myself several times while they cornered you. "And what happened?" I asked, although I already knew part of the answer. When the lights went out, his voice faltered. "I saw something. Something I can't explain. Something that shouldn't exist." "What did you see?" "A figure, between you and me, taller than any man, radiant, as if made of pure light. It had enormous wings that stretched across the entire courtyard. His hands were shaking so much that he had to put them together to try and control them. He was looking directly at me, and I knew, without him saying a word, that if I pulled that trigger, it wouldn't be you who would fall. It would be me." Tears streamed down his face. A soldier trained not to show any emotion, crying in my small apartment. When the lights came back on, the figure was gone, but the terror wasn't. I tried to grab the rifle, but I couldn't. My hands wouldn't respond. They sent me for psychological evaluation. They said I'd had a nervous breakdown. They drugged me. They interrogated me. They tried to convince me that I'd imagined it all. "And you believed it?" "For a while. I wanted to believe, because accepting that what I saw was real meant that everything I believed in was a lie, that the state I worked for was on the wrong side. That you, a woman accused of believing in an invisible God, you were right." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "I resigned. Officially, they said I was dismissed for health reasons, but I resigned. I couldn't wear that uniform again. I couldn't hold a gun again, because I knew that if I did, that figure would come back, and next time he wouldn't spare me." We remained silent for several minutes. The clock on the wall ticked away. Outside, I heard the distant sound of a military truck passing by on the street. "Why did you come here?" I finally asked. "Because I need to know what you believe in. What power is it that has protected you? And how can I find it too?" My heart raced. This was dangerous. Extremely dangerous. What if someone was listening? What if there were hidden microphones? What if it was being used to frame me? But I looked into his eyes, and I saw sincerity. "What protected me was not a power," he said slowly. "It was a person. His name is Jesus." I spent the next 2 hours telling him how I came to know the faith, the secret meetings, the Bible with crumpled pages, the peace I found even in the darkest cell, the miracle I couldn't explain, but knew was real. He listened, absorbing every word like a thirsty person drinking water. "How can I meet him?" he asked when I finished. "You already know," I replied. "He has already revealed himself to you. Now you just need to believe." That night, in my small apartment, with my son sleeping in the next room, Kang Min-soo knelt on the floor, and she said the simplest and most powerful prayer there is. "Jesus, if you are real, come into my life. Forgive what I have done. Show me the way." And something changed. I don't know how to describe it, but I felt as if the atmosphere in the room had become lighter, as if a window had been opened, letting in fresh air. He felt it too. I saw it in his face, in how his shoulders relaxed, in how his hands finally stopped trembling. When he left that night, he was no longer the same man who had arrived, and I knew his story was far from over. We met 3 more times in the following weeks, always late at night, always with extreme care. I taught him the verses I had memorized. I told him the Bible stories that Mrs. Choi had taught me. I showed him how to pray, and he changed rapidly, as if years of propaganda and indoctrination were peeling away layer by layer, revealing the true person who had been buried beneath it all along. At our last meeting, he told me something that surprised me. "I'm going to run away too," he said. "I'm going to cross over to China. And from there I'll find a way to get somewhere where I can be truly free." "When?" "Soon. Before winter arrives. I have contacts. People who can help." I hesitated. And then I made a decision that I knew was risky, but that I felt was the right one. "Us too," I said. "Me and Sunjo. We'll try." His eyes lit up. "Then let's go together. It would be safer. Harder to track if we were a small group that looked like a family." He was right. And so, at that moment, our destinies intertwined in a way I could never have imagined. The soldier who was going to execute me became the ally who was going to help me escape. God has a peculiar sense of humor, and his plans are far more complex and beautiful than we can comprehend. The preparations for the escape took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of carefully constructed lies, calculated movements, and constant prayer. Kang Minsu had contacts, people who helped refugees cross the border. Not out of kindness, I need to make that clear, but for money. Lots of money. The kind of money I didn't have. But Minsu did, savings from his years in the army, and he offered without hesitation. "That's what I need to do," he said when I tried to refuse. "Let me help you. Let me start fixing the things I did wrong." I sold everything of value that we had, which wasn't much. My husband's watch, a pair of earrings that belonged to my mother, an old radio. I saved enough to contribute to the expenses, although Minsu insisted it wasn't necessary. I told Sunjo that we were going on a trip. I didn't say where. I didn't say why. I just said that he needed to be brave and stay quiet. My son, with his 8-year-old wisdom, simply nodded. "Are we going somewhere where God isn't a secret?" he asked one night. The question broke my heart. "Yes," I replied. "We'll go somewhere where you can talk about him freely." His eyes lit up, and in that moment, I knew I was doing the right thing, however dangerous it might be. Minsu's contact was called Lee. He didn't give us his full name. He didn't tell us his story. He only said where and when we were going to meet. The night of the escape was November 15th. It was cold. Not as cold as the dead of winter, but cold enough that your breath felt like white clouds. The first snowstorms were only a few weeks away. We met in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. We left Pyongyang at 3 in the morning. There were 5 other people, 2 young women, an older man who limped, and a couple with a baby. No one spoke. Everyone knew that silence was a matter of survival. Lee gave us quick instructions. We were going to travel in cargo trucks, hidden under sacks of rice and charcoal. The trip would take 8 hours to reach the border. From there, we would cross the river on foot during the night. "If they catch you, you don't know me," Lee said. His tone was monotone. "If they catch you, you were never here. Understood?" We all agreed. The trip was a nightmare, crammed into the back of a truck. No windows, no fresh air. The smell of coal was so strong it stung my eyes. Sunjo was huddled against me, trembling, not just from the cold, but from fear. Minsu was on the other side, with a protective hand on my shoulder. Every time the truck stopped, my heart stopped too. I thought they'd found us, that the soldiers were going to open the door and it would all be over. But no, the checkpoints were routine. Lee had forged documents. He bribed whoever he needed to, and we carried on. We arrived at the border area while it was still dark. Lee quickly pulled us out of the truck. He guided us along dirt tracks to a small cabin hidden among the trees. "Wait here until it gets dark again," he said. "Then I'll take you to the river." We spent the whole day in that cabin. No food, except for a little stale bread. No heating. The cold seeped through the rotten wooden walls. Sunjo was trembling uncontrollably. I wrapped him in my coat and hugged him tightly. The others in the group were equally terrified. The baby cried occasionally. The mother tried to calm him, panic in her eyes whenever the crying got louder. Minsu was praying softly. I heard him murmur verses I had taught him. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" When night finally fell, Lee returned. "The time has come," he said. He guided us through the forest. The terrain was uneven. Tree roots threatened to trip us. Branches tore our clothes and skin. The older man, who limped, struggled to keep up. Minsu had to help him in several sections. We walked for 2 hours, and finally we heard it. The sound of the water, the Tumen River. Even in the darkness I could see it flowing, faster than I expected. Wider, more intimidating. "The water's 2 degrees, Lee said. "You have to move fast. If you stay too long, hypothermia will kill you before you even reach the other side." He handed me a rope. Tie yourselves together. If one falls, the others can pull you up. And keep the children on your shoulders." My hands trembled as I tied the rope around my waist. Minsu did the same. Then he placed the Sunjo on his shoulders. "Hold on tight," he told my son. "Don't let go under any circumstances." Sunjo nodded, his little fingers gripping Minsu's neck with all the strength he possessed. And we went into the water. The cold was instant, brutal, like 1,000 knives piercing my skin all at once. The water reached my waist, the current pushing, trying to drag us downstream. Every step was a battle. The riverbed was slippery. Stones covered in mud gave way beneath our feet. I managed to keep my balance. Others weren't so lucky. The older man fell. The rope tightened. Everyone stopped, struggling against the current as he tried to get up. Minsu pulled him up. We continued. In the middle of the river, the baby began to cry. The crying stood out against the sound of the water. The mother panicked, trying to calm him down while keeping his head above water. "Calm her down," Lee shouted. "The guards patrol this area." But the baby wouldn't stop moving. And then we heard something that chilled my blood more than water. Dogs barking in the distance, coming from the bank we had just left. "Come on," Lee shouted. "Quick now." We did the best we could. The water slowed us down. The cold made us go slower, but fear pushed us forward. The barking grew louder. I heard voices, shouts in Korean ordering us to stop. We were 20 meters from the Chinese bank, and then I heard the shot. A bullet hit the water right in front of me. The sound echoed in the cold night air. "Don't look back," Minsu shouted. "Keep going." My feet touched solid ground. Minsu was right behind me with Sunjo. The others arrived too, everyone except Lee. He was standing in the middle of the river, pointing at us, shouting at the soldiers. He was distracting them, giving them a target while we escaped. More shots rang out. I saw Lee stagger, fall into the water, and be swept away by the current. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go back, but Minsu pulled me forward. "We can't help him. Run!" And we ran, through the woods on the Chinese side, our lungs burning, our frozen clothes clinging to our bodies, the sound of gunfire still echoing behind us. We ran until we couldn't anymore, and finally we collapsed in a clearing, breathless, crying, trembling from cold, shock, and relief. We had made it. We had crossed the border. We were in China, free, or at least freer than we had ever been in our lives. China wasn't the salvation we were hoping for, at least not immediately. We spent the first 3 weeks hiding in safe houses, places run by Chinese Christians who risked their own freedom to help North Korean refugees. We were transferred every few days, from one city to another, always at night, always afraid of being discovered, because being in China as North Korean refugees didn't make us free. The Chinese government had an agreement with North Korea. If they found us, they would deport us back. And going back meant guaranteed execution. Then we became ghosts, people without identity, without documents, without official existence. Sunjo fell ill during the 2nd week. He had a high fever from crossing that frozen river. He coughed so much I thought his lungs were going to explode. We couldn't get him to a hospital. He had no documents. He had no money for bribes. But the family that was hiding us had medicine. A woman named Mrs. Wang cared for him, as if he were her own grandson. She gave him hot soup. She put cold compresses on his forehead. And she prayed for him with such simple and pure faith that it reminded me of Mrs. Choi. Minsu had also crossed over. He stayed with us for the first few weeks, but eventually they had to separate. It was too dangerous to travel in large groups. He was going to take a different route south, trying to reach Thailand or Laos, where he could seek asylum. "We'll meet again," he said on the day he left. "Somewhere free, where we can worship without hiding." I hugged him. The man who had almost taken my life was now like a brother. God had transformed the darkest part into light. "Thank you," I said, "for everything. No, thank you for showing me the truth. You saved me from an empty life." He knelt before Sunjo. "Take care of your mother," he said. "You are a brave boy. Don't forget that." And he left. I didn't see him again for years, but that's a story for another time. Our route was different, longer, more complicated, because we were a woman alone with a child, and that made us vulnerable to other dangers. Traffickers who took advantage of refugees, men who offered help in exchange for things I refused even to consider. But God protected us, again and again, in ways I can only describe as providential. Like that night at the train station when Chinese police started checking documents. We were in line, without documents, without a story we could support in an interrogation. And just when it was our turn, one of the police officers received an urgent call. They ran out. They didn't even get to check our section. Or like that afternoon at the market, when a man started following us, I could feel his gaze, his intentions. Suddenly, a group of foreign tourists appeared. We mingled with them. The man disappeared. Small miracles, moments of grace that, added together, formed a ladder that led us closer to true freedom. Months passed. We traveled south through Chinese provinces with names I could barely pronounce. Sometimes we walked. Sometimes we traveled hidden in trucks. Sometimes we stayed in one place for weeks waiting for contacts to organize the next leg of the journey. Sunjo was growing. Not physically, because malnutrition had left its mark, but emotionally. He was maturing faster than any child should. He learned to be quiet when we needed silence. He learned to smile when we needed to appear normal. He learned to pray when we needed hope. Finally, 8 months after crossing the Tumen River, we arrived at the border with Laos. The crossing was different this time, more organized. There was a whole network of people dedicated to it. They gave us fake documents. They dressed us in tourist clothes. They taught us basic English phrases to make it seem like we were foreign travelers. And we crossed the border, not running, not hiding, but walking with our heads held high, as if we had every right to be there. It worked. In Laos, we finally registered as refugees, officially, with real documents that stated who we were and where we came from. They took us to a refugee camp. It wasn't luxurious. It was tents in neat rows, shared bathrooms, rationed food, but it was safe. And for the first time in almost a year, I could sleep without fear that at any moment, someone would come and drag us back. We spent 3 months there while our asylum application was being processed. During that time, we met other North Korean refugees, each with their own story of escape, of loss, of small and great miracles. And we met missionaries, people from different countries who dedicated their lives to helping refugees. They gave us language lessons. They taught us about the culture of the country we were eventually going to. They prepared us for a life we could hardly imagine. And finally, in May 2019, we received the news. South Korea had accepted our asylum request. We were going back home. Not the home we had fled from, but the home where we should have been born. The southern half of a peninsula divided by politics and war, where speaking Korean wasn't a crime, where believing in God was a right, where Sunjo could grow up free. The flight was surreal. Sunjo had never been on a plane before. He pressed his face against the window the entire trip, gazing at the clouds in awe. I held his hand, and I cried silently. Tears of joy, of pain, of gratitude, all mixed together. When we landed in Seoul, it was like stepping onto another planet. Bright lights, enormous buildings, people walking fast but without fear, nobody looking over their shoulder, nobody whispering. We were greeted by a social worker, a young woman with a welcoming smile. She took us to a reintegration center. There we would receive classes, help finding work, and support while learning to live in a free society. And most importantly, she asked if we would like to attend church. Yes, I replied without hesitation. Please. The first Sunday we went to church, I cried as soon as I walked in. There were hundreds of people singing, hands raised, without fear, without hiding. Words of adoration filled the place. Giant screens displayed the lyrics. A pastor preached from the pulpit, without fear of being arrested. Sunjo looked at me with wide eyes. Mom, is this real? Yes, my love, I replied. This is real. This is freedom. We stayed for the entire service, and at the end, when the pastor called those who wanted to publicly dedicate their lives to Christ to the altar, Sunjo pulled my hand. I want to go, he said. You already know Jesus, I reminded him. You've already given your heart to him. I know, but I want to do it here, where everyone can see, where it's no longer a secret. And we went together, my 9-year-old son and I, in front of hundreds of people, and we declared our faith, not in whispers, but aloud, clearly, freely. It was the most beautiful moment of my life. 6 years have passed since that day at the Kachon military compound. 6 years since the lights went out and God saved me from certain death. Today I am 38 years old. Sunjo is 14. He studies at a high school in Seoul. He wants to be a pastor. He wants to dedicate his life to helping other North Korean refugees find the faith that saved us. I work with an organization that helps refugees cross the border. I don't go in person. It would be too dangerous. But I help from here, raising funds, organizing support networks, telling my story repeatedly so that people understand what's happening on the other side of the border. And I saw Minsu again. He arrived in South Korea 2 years after us, by a different route, with his own scars and miracles. Now he's the leader of a congregation of North Korean refugees. We meet once a month. We share food, we pray together, and we remember that day in the courtyard where our lives intertwined in the most unlikely way. Sometimes I still dream about it, he told me at our last meeting. The figure I saw, the wings, the light, and I wake up trembling, not from fear, but from wonder. Me too, I admitted, but my dreams are different. I dream of darkness, of that moment when the lights went out and I thought it was all over. And then I heard that voice, "Fear not, for I am with you." "Do you know why you think this happened?" he asked. "Why did God save you, and not the thousands of others who are executed every year?" It was a question I asked myself hundreds of times, and I had never found a satisfactory answer. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I don't think it's because I'm special or more deserving. I believe God performs miracles when he wants to show his power, when he wants someone to tell the story, so that others know he exists, that he's present even in the darkest places. So you have a responsibility," Minsu said, "to keep telling it, again and again, until the whole world knows that God has not abandoned North Korea." He was right. That's why I'm sharing this with you now, because you need to know that miracles are real, that God is not limited by walls, borders, or oppressive regimes, that he can turn off the lights of an entire military complex if necessary to save a life. But you also need to know that miracles don't always come in the way we expect. Sometimes the miracle isn't being saved from death. Sometimes the miracle is finding peace in the midst of suffering, strength to endure another day, hope when all seems lost. Mrs. Choi wasn't saved. She probably spent her last days in a forced labor camp. My husband, Jae-sung, was trapped under the rubble of a building. Lee was swept away by the current of the Tumen River. So many others paid the ultimate price for their faith. Does this mean God abandoned them? No. It means their miracles were different, that their story continues elsewhere, that the pain here is temporary, but the glory that awaits them is eternal. I'm no better than them. I just took a different path. I had a different purpose. A story that needed to be told so that you, wherever you are listening to this, know that you're not alone. If you're in a dark cell, if you're facing an execution wall, if dogs are barking behind you as you cross a frozen river, if you feel like God is millions of miles away, he's there, right there, and at the exact moment you need him most, when everything seems lost, when your finger is on the trigger and your life hangs by a thread, the lights will go out, and his presence will envelop you. I can't promise you'll be saved from physical death, but I can promise you'll never be alone, that he sees your pain, that he counts your tears, someone who has a plan, even when everything seems chaotic. My story ended with freedom. Yours may end differently, but both end with the same truth. God is real, his love is real, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can separate us from that love, neither death nor life, neither angels nor principalities, neither the present nor the future, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God. That's what Romans 8 says. And I believed it in that cell. I believed it as I faced the firing squad. I believed it while crossing the river. And I believe it today. If you're going through tough times right now, I want you to believe this too. The lights will go out when they need to, and when they come back on, you'll still be standing, because God isn't finished with you yet. Your story is just beginning. If this testimony touched your heart, please share it. There's someone out there who needs to know that miracles are real, that God intervenes, that we're not alone in the darkness. Share this with your country so I know the reach of this message of hope. And if you're going through your own valley of the shadow of death, I want to pray for you. Heavenly Father, you who turned off the lights in Kachon, you who sent your angel to protect me, you who guided me across the frozen river and led me to freedom, I ask that you touch whoever is listening to this now, that in their darkest hour, you may be the light, that in their deepest fear, you may be the peace, that when all seems lost, you may be the one who opens the way. Protect them as you protected me, love them as you loved me, and use them for your glory as you are using me. In the name of Jesus, amen.